Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We're a bunch of mega fans giving you the news, discussion, and of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. Oh my god. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm Weiry Writer.
Also joining us, I don't know what bit this is, Evgeni. What's up? How's it going?
Hello, I am Argent.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, cool. Go watch the video if you're listening on audio. Like that. Anyway,
Or don't. None of us are your mom.
I mean, presumably.
But some of us might be your daddy.
We're starting strong here. Also, rounding out the cast with fulfilling peak Shardcast energy, we got Grace.
Hey, I'm Gatorgirl.
And
See,
really,
the problem is normally I play off of whatever Argent's bit is, but I don't know what he was doing, so I
Yeah.
can't.
Well, Grace, the thing is, I never know what I am doing, is the thing.
no, I did figure that.
So, that's like trying to understand what I am doing in order to match my energy is the wrong way to match my energy.
Am I doing it right?
I think he was staring
know.
into the camera. Anyway,
Mhm.
Oh, I thought he was just like sitting really tall and letting his like mic point to his throat for some reason. I don't know. That's what it looked like to me.
okay. Doesn't matter. Let's move on. People are tuning off the video very rapidly. We're doing more Wind and Truth stuff. So obviously Wind and Truth spoilers in this episode and Cosmere spoilers, but it'll probably mostly be Wind and Truth stuff, I think. Here.
Sunlit Man.
Okay, yeah. That's all. That's always potential. We're talking more about Adolin stuff. We're talking about the Unoathed. We're gonna arm up and talk about them. We got the peak Shardcast crew. We just need David, and then that's peak Shardcast. You know,
Yeah.
the good old Dawn Shard crew. Classic.
Which is never a recipe for a 6-hour disaster.
Hey, we're not recording a double today. The last few episodes were like, maybe it'll be shorter. Like, you'll see below if it is. So, we're going to talk about the Unoathed. And
I want to talk about the name.
Yeah, okay. Talk about the name. Let's do it.
How do we feel about the name? Because I don't like it.
It's not my favorite thing Brandon has ever named.
I think it has a little bit of a weird mouthfeel, a little bit of a clunky. It's difficult to objectively, describe things like that. Like oath by itself is an okay word. Oath starts getting a little weird, and then you make it unoathed, and that's. I think I don't have a perfect solution, but I think oathless might have worked better for me. I just wanted to voice my extremely irrelevant issue with the Unoathed, which is
strong.
I think they should have had a better name.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't be opposed to them having a different name. I think the scene where Adolin name drops the Unoathed for the first time and is like, Unoathed, suit up or whatever.
Arma.
He's just, that's where the cringe, this is just no.
Well, and the funny thing is, by the way, he says that, and Yanagan looks at him and is like, "What?"
Yeah, it's like,
and then he repeats it, and it's like,
Well, technically,
Bro,
he
what are
says,
you doing?
I said arm up. He doesn't repeat the word Unoathed.
yeah,
just to be clear.
Sure.
it's too MCU quippy, which is I'm fine with that.
I mean,
most of the
that's
time. That was just a step too far for me, and I'm just like,
look,
Brandon, no one knows what Adolin is talking about. Adolin doesn't know what he's talking about. Why are you doing this? You're trying to do Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, no.
The Avengers have never been mentioned.
The Scooby-Doo meme of the gang removing the mask from the villain and it's under the mask, it's Avengers Assemble, but with the mask, it's Unoathed Arm Up. It's, yeah.
I will say, having reread the very few scenes that I needed to reread for this episode, because there's not many, which is good. I think it really works for me because we have the Ash spren, like, saying Watchers at the Rim, and Adolin feels that Ash spren's thoughts. Oaths had fallen. Aelin's talking about oaths and promises, and then Maya's like, we'll stand again, and I don't know, it works for me.
No, to be clear, literally everything else about that scene, amazing, perfect.
Yep.
Adolin going unoathed arm up.
Okay.
Lame.
Okay.
That 5 seconds is just like, Brandon, why?
I like the fact that the term unoathed encompasses the spren themselves and describes the spren themselves as much as it describes the people, which I think like in Knight's Radiant, obviously the spren are a part of that bond. I guess they're sort of the radiant part, but I don't know. I feel like the spren are truly the ones who are unoathed because they're the ones who had the oaths of their radiance broken, kind of.
Sure.
It's
so you mean this thematically and not mechanically, right?
Yes.
Because there are.
I know. Adolin does not call the spren the unoathed in that moment. Well, I guess sort of notes. Look, but thematically, I think that the term unoathed fits the spren and what they have been through, and I like that.
Cool. I think what bothers me is that I don't understand what unoathed means. I think that's one of my issues with it.
Don't have oaths. Nailed it.
Well, yeah, but when you are an oath, you've sworn oaths. When you are unoathed, have you it's the ambiguity of, I don't know if you have not sworn oaths or if you are an oath breaker, I guess is what. And obviously, I know in the context of the story, but the name itself is not clear. Anyway, I'll stop talking about the name. I'll stop talking about it.
Good. Yeah, so the Unoathed have several benefits that are very useful now that the Night of Sorrows has come down on everyone. And the
trend with benefits? Wow.
Yep. Because with no more Stormlight, you can't, bond a blade because you needed the gemstone to bond that, right? Did the gemstone for regular shard blades need Stormlight in it in order for you to bond it?
I mean, presumably.
It was never made clear.
Yeah, okay.
It was never made clear, but this is one of those things where it's Stormlight has been not just abundant, it has been prevalent.
Yeah,
just
sure.
For up until this point, you can just assume that you have Stormlight, except for the weeping and stuff.
Yeah.
And so usually when you say you need a gem, it's safe to assume that you mean you need an infused gem. But that's
needed for weeks.
Given because you can always get an infused gem.
Regardless, you cannot summon regular blades anymore, and obviously regular plate. You could wear regular plate, right?
Can you not summon regular blades? You can't bond regular blades.
Ooh. So, you're saying if you were a regular shard bearer, Night of Sorrows happens, you already have bonded that blade, can you still summon that blade? That's your question?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they say definitively in the chapter.
Yeah, I thought that was the case too, right? That
I also seems track with. I did not reread anything.
Great.
So
me neither.
Fortunately, there is only 2 sections in two chapters.
Oh yeah. Okay. Somehow their armor and swords worked without Stormlight, in contrast to those of ordinary shard bearers, whose blades could not be bonded and plate could not be repaired. The armaments of the Unoathed still functioned. Radiance could still summon blades and plate too, but Adolin's Unoathed could do it without surges or oaths. So that does make it sound, if you are a standard shard bearer, you can summon the blade. You can.
I think so. Yeah.
As long as you've bonded it. But like a century, that wouldn't happen because you'd be dead.
Yeah, like if they kill you,
yeah, they can't bond it.
I do wonder. I guess if they if you kill a shard bearer now, I guess the blade is going to still. Is it going to drop on the ground?
Yeah,
or is the
I don't see any reason why wouldn't.
Okay, yeah. So the blade drops on the ground. You can pick it up and you can carry it like a normal sword, but you're not going to be able to bond it, and therefore you're not going to be able to dismiss it.
Yeah, I think it may vary because there's the whole thing about like the dead eyes are healing themselves now.
That is also true.
So it's just like, is there going to be random shard blades hanging around?
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was asking this. Because I was going to say, we're back to like post-recreance rules where they didn't know about the gems that allowed you to bond a dead eyes shard blade. But we are very explicitly in not post-recreance rules because of the Mishram thing.
True.
Which is why, like, I kind of wish, like, the dead eyes weren't automatically healing, and it's like you need to do what like the Unoathed are doing, of like bonding but not bonding, emotionally bonding, not spiritually bonding with
friendship. Yeah.
Although
like the Cosmere
like,
emotional bonding,
them like recover themselves rather than it just being like, yeah, they're all good now, or will be fine.
Yeah. Because Maya explicitly says every Deadeye I've met, even those not part of our group, is healing.
Yeah, and there's a conversation here to be had about like, yes, they are healing. Are they all healing at the same rate and kind of to the same point? Right? It's possible that Maya and the other Unoathed spren will be restored further than those who are not bonded, but we don't know.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if, like, these non-Unoathed spren, don't give me that, Evgeni, if they will eventually heal and can just act like normal Radiant spren again.
That is also a good question, yeah.
Right? Because, in some sense, maybe these 37 spren that Maya's got, they can have a total of 37. It explicitly says that.
Plus the armor spren.
Yeah, plus their associated armor spren. Yeah, for sure. Those could be more advantageous because you don't need Stormlight to, like, use the plate and blades, whereas, Radiant powers, they would just work in Unoathed, right? And so even if those other spren did get healed, this is kind of still an advantage.
Yeah, if we are heading towards a world where the Radiants are limited to either, or rather, if Surge Binding is limited, I guess Surge Binding is not even a term we can use because it applies to everything. But like, if the Radiants can only use their powers in Unoathed, or like if they establish other similar safe havens, where like shielded areas where they can use the powers, that can be a way of having the Unoathed be, they can just work anywhere.
Yeah.
And yes, they are less powerful than the Radiant is kind of on a pure power level, but they're also less limited than the Radiant is. Although, no, as I say that, I walk it back because what stops, I was going to say Kaladin, but he's a poor example. What stops any like fourth ideal Radiant from just like walking out of Unoathed, assuming that the bubble goes down, and like summoning their blade and plate and functioning like an Unoathed?
Nothing.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point.
I think they can.
Yeah. And they could probably summon like their shard blade, whenever.
I would expect so. There is I've been thinking about the suppressor fabrial that we saw in Rhythm of War and how it prevented blades from being summoned. I wonder if that would apply to a regular shard bearer, and I wonder if that would apply to an Unoathed.
Oh, we're getting into the deep mechanic questions. Okay.
Clearly, it doesn't work on a Radiant of the 4th Ideal, but one of the differences between Radiants and Unoathed is kind of where the spren is. It seems like Maya never really like fully leaves Shadesmar unless she is summoned in blade form, right?
Sure, rather than like Syl flying around and
rather
stuff.
than someone like Seal or Pattern who are fully like when the Radiant, like the stronger the Radiant bond is, the more that spren gets pulled into the physical realm, right? And so I guess the way the suppressor fabrial works is by putting a barrier between the physical and the cognitive. And unless you are a Radiant and your spren is far enough into the physical realm, then that barrier prevents you from summoning it in blade form, or summoning them in blade form.
During that final fight, Adolin can't summon Maya in the aluminum room. I would think that it's probably similar.
I think that makes sense, yeah. And so I would imagine a suppressor fabrial would actually work both on regular shard bearers and on Unoathed.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I don't know if I fully agree, but I think that's more that we don't really understand a lot of the mechanics on how that works, right? Because ultimately, the original suppressor fabrial was designed to dampen like fused abilities, right? So that they couldn't come in.
I mean, if you mean Eurytheru, original, then yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Raboniel flips it, so it's affecting radiant powers.
So what I was talking about was actually the little
like the
fabrial that
Moash has?
The portable one, yeah. It applies to the sibling as well, so we can continue with that conversation, but it's not what I was talking about.
It's interesting that the anti-surge binding, whether that's fused surge binding or radiant surge binding, depending on polarity of the whatchamacallit, I find it interesting that it does affect the summoning as a blade. Because that like feels like a distinct thing, but I guess it is still part of the Nahil bond.
And it's also worth pointing out that even without the summoning aspect of it, the spren feels suppressed by this, just like mentally.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it's less suppressing. It's basically like targeting like an invested creature. It's like it's either like the fused, like as in a cognitive shadow, suppressing their abilities, or it's like targeting the spren more so than the radiant. And like locking down the spren from like having that exchange with their radiant.
Yeah, sure.
In which case, like, okay, then it makes more sense that like being summoned as a blade is like also negated, because like that is also a function of the spren.
Yeah, and I guess the gem in a regular shard blade, like a dead blade, is kind of mimicking a bit of that Nahil bond, like just a fragment of it to summon it. No. So I can kind of see that could be affected, maybe.
But it gets messy with Venli, right?
I was wondering about L's shard blade if he's in the suppressor's fabrial. You know?
Sure. But because like Venli can fully use her stone shaping within Eurytheru, which is a power granted to her by her Reacher, by Timber.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
And like the only thing is she has to use Void Light for it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a Stormlight thing then. So like I guess the switching polarity is like switching whether it's affecting Stormlighty things versus Voidlighty things.
I was going to say investiture.
I think with Venli, there's potentially the added complication of she can use Voidlight, yes, but also Timbre is like within her gem heart.
That's true.
Which like I can see potentially that giving Timbre a layer of protection that Human Radiants don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's the annoying thing with like a book or a series where everyone is special in some way. And it's like it's so difficult to suss out how things work. Because it's like, well, you have Renarin with his like weird special bond, and you have R'Laine, who is even more special because he's a singer with his special weird bond, and you have Venli, and you have Kaladin, who is the main protagonist spren, and
I would not be surprised if in the suppressor fabrial the Unoathed could still summon their stuff. Like if it's affecting whether things mechanically using Stormlight versus Voidlight, and Voidlight would be okay, right? Then, well, the Unoathed are not using Stormlight. That's pretty explicit. So there's an argument to be made. I would also not be surprised if it just generically like dampens Nahal
but
Bond
like
things.
Radiants don't use Stormlight when summoning their spren as blades.
Could Venli summon Tamper as a blade in Rhythm of War, like if she was of sufficient ideal? I don't know. That's a great question.
That's also a great question, yeah. I was also thinking of like, because there was this fused who had Elokar's blade in Urithiru, right? Because Rabonio or Navani saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that fused had bonded the blade and or whether they were able to dismiss it.
In my opinion, I don't think regular blade summoning and dismissing, I think that is okay in the suppressor fabrial.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot of evidence.
Why does it affect Radiant?
Well, because it's like that.
My opinion is purely based off vibes, because that's what we're having to go on here. But that's my opinion.
You're not wrong about that. Like I was gonna make some argument for like, well, okay, but the Radiant Spren, it's like investiture, and some of that investiture is Honor's investiture, and so the Fabrial is preventing that from but like it works literally exactly the same way. Like Dead Eyes are still made of the same investiture. I don't know. Unfortunately, this may be it's for book reasons.
The suppressor fabrial works the way Brandon needs the suppressor fabrial to work. And that's just how it is.
It looks into your spirit web and determines if you've sworn the first ideal.
Yeah.
And if you have,
it actually looks at your character sheet. It looks at your talents, and it's like, well, if you have this, then
if you're of this alignment, you can't use magical powers. If you're of this alignment, you're good.
Yeah, you must be on the evil row of the alignment chart.
The odium row. Excuse me.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So is honor meant to be like no? Because honor certainly is lawful, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's 3x3. So like,
you don't need to get into. You don't need to get into this.
Okay. Let's not forget to do an episode on the D&D alignment chart, but
honor
like replace the good, neutral, evil
with shards.
Lawful, neutral, chaotic with shards.
Yeah, cool. I do like how for the second episode in a row we're getting very off track immediately and also talking a lot about Rhythm of War.
Look, this is all unoathed mechanics.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
It was related.
I like how we're like,
it's related.
with this mechanic that we don't understand interacts with this fabrial that we don't understand.
True.
Look, we are trying to figure out how the Unoathed work.
Yeah.
And we are trying to contextualize their abilities and powers using other things that we know about, with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't know about those other things either. So like we're just look, this is a puzzle, and we are looking for the edge pieces.
So I think the thing I'm wondering is Adolin in this chapter 147 quote, like that Adolin epilogue scene, right? Regular plate can't be repaired, but that seems to suggest that Unoathed plate is fine. Like it can be repaired somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how that would work, but I guess function like radiant plate, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it works.
Yeah, because it
like
can
radiant.
just dismiss and resummon itself, which I assume fixes it.
Yeah. Or, like the spren slowly, like, draws investiture from the spiritual realm and, like, repairs itself and stuff like that.
Yeah, like the spren are awake enough that, like, they can do magic about it and fix themselves.
Yeah, I think, like, mechanically speaking, right, spren don't require investiture to survive, right?
Yeah.
If they go long enough without investiture, like they weaken. But that doesn't. I don't think that kills them. And so that
maybe on like a long enough time scale, like millennia, I could see.
Maybe, sure. And so the way I think that works is they're just plugged into the spiritual realm a little bit.
Sure.
And that provides like sustenance for them.
Sure.
Not enough for them to like use any powers, but it keeps them alive. Obviously they still want to have like a good high storm hardy meal, because that revitalizes them, but it's not required. And so when they manifest as plate and you break some of that plate, that essentially eats away at their investiture store, at themselves. Unclear how exactly that works. But I imagine you send them back to Shadesmar and like they heal like a human body would heal, right? Just slowly over time they repair themselves, and eventually you can summon them again and they're whole.
Yeah, and Radiant Plate is OP, guys. It's really good.
Yeah, and so I think the big difference here is that if you are a Radiant with a spren, your plug into the spiritual realm is a much, much larger.
Sure, and then you can use powers and stuff. Sure.
You can also just like actively give them a little Stormlight snack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. More difficult now than,
Tower Light snack. Yeah, it is just interesting. I wonder if there would be a thing that, because there's no high storm rejuvenating any of these spren, whether like the plate, like maybe it's not exactly like Radiant Plate, but surely there is a mechanic to get them that plate repaired, right?
Yeah, because normal shard plate, you would just like put gems in it and it regrows.
Yeah. And wasn't it that like the Radiant Plate, shard plate, you put the gemstones just inside regular shard plate and that restored it, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I don't think Radiant Plate needs to do that.
Because like the gems are just a power source. It's like you feed Stormlight into it.
Yeah, and so you can just like, you're Radiant, so you got that.
Yeah. I also wonder if with regular plate, when you shatter a piece, I wonder if with Radiant Plate, when you break a piece off, all that is happening is that the armor spren are just kind of retreating back to Shadesmar, and so you never actually destroy that investiture in the same way that you might. I mean, not destroy, obviously, but like, I wonder if there's a qualitative difference between breaking Kaladin's helm versus breaking a regular Shardbearer's helm.
I think, like, we don't know, I don't think, how many spren make up each set of plates.
Sure.
Which, like, I'm sure, Brandon, it's like, is it that each solid piece of plate is one single spren,
No.
or is it a network? It's like a network of spren that all sort of like are holding hands together.
It's a network of spren because like it's.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Evgeni is looking up the Shallan art piece.
The Shallan piece, yes.
Yeah.
Which while he's doing that, I'm going to respond to the thing earlier that
Yeah.
he said, which is like, I don't think there's a qualitative difference between breaking Kaladin's helm versus a regular Shardbearer's helm. Like, I think it's still like physical manifestation is broken. I don't think that harms the spren in any way. It just like yeets them back to the spiritual or like the cognitive realm or like wherever they go when they're not physically manifest. And like a radiant spren can just radiant armor spren can just automatically like get back to the point where they can manifest that piece again, whereas like a dead armor spren like needs the active infusion of stormlight to like
Yes.
zombie them back into existence.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah,
I
agreed.
I don't even think, to me, it's like zombie them back into existence. I think it's just because like regular armor doesn't disappear; it just like cracks, right? It like physically breaks. I think it's just
it explodes.
Yeah, it explodes into
it's
pieces.
shrapnel. Yeah,
but like
shrapnel.
I don't.
I'm saying like
I always had the impression like those like it explodes and like those pieces like fade away.
Yeah, that was my impression.
Like
Yeah.
you need like a whole or at least like a partially whole piece to rebuild from. Like I don't think like you can grab like rebuild an armor piece from like a broken thing because I don't think that it continues to exist.
I'm pretty sure from what I remember, you just need like the largest possible piece you can find.
Yeah.
And then what I think they disappear because as you feed the stormlight, the other pieces like are summoned back to the main plate that is being regrown.
No, yeah, that
I don't think they just fade naturally on their own.
I kind of assumed that when you shatter the way I assumed this works was that you need, yes, you can regrow plate from the largest piece, but that piece needs to be like an armor, like it needs to be an item. It has to be a glove or a vambrace or a sabaton or something like that. It cannot be like a finger of the glove, because I think when you when you do the double hit, when you hit the same piece twice, I think it essentially vaporizes that piece. Is the way I've read it.
Yeah.
So I found the thing that I was looking for, which was the Shallan plate and blades illustration from Wind and Truth. And there's a bit there that says there are more beads, referring to the armor spren, the creation spren beads. There are more beads than plate sections, but fewer than the number of plate segments. How do they correlate? Wonders Shawan. And the way I read that is a plate section would be like boots, chest piece, shoulders, gloves, that kind of 10-ish pieces of armor.
Sure.
And there are more beads than that, but there are fewer than the plate segments. And I interpret segment to mean like, so if you look at the illustration,
each like metal
Shallan
bit
has like a skirt, for example, with a bunch of different like metal pieces. Essentially, each one of those would be a segment, and there are fewer spren than the number of segments.
That's interesting. I would have thought there was more spren than even that each segment would have multiple spren. So that's kind of interesting.
There is also, I'm reminded of when Adolin is looking through Maya's eyes and seeing the Unoathed spren. There's an honor spren there with wind spren riding on him like barnacles, is what Adolin says. Ooh. I feel like the number of spren that make up an armor cannot be that large.
It's just so interesting because it seemed like Kaladin had so many wins, friend, but it's been a while since I've read that.
It does seem like there are so many of them, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it's never like fully clear how many there are. And whether his armor wins spren are just like pulling in a bunch of friends around and are like, hey, let's do wind things together.
Yeah, like how many of those are actually the armor spren? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But what we do know with the Unoathed armor spren is that the helm can go fully transparent. So no islets necessary. So just like Radiant Plate. So that is pretty cool.
And it has ventilation. The entire plate.
It's basically the AI of like the Jarvis of the Iron Man suit is activated and can do stuff.
Yes.
As opposed to just a hunk of metal.
I think the longer this episode goes on, the more I'm like, Unoathed blade and plate probably work mostly the same as Radiant blade and plate. Like,
yes. For sure.
Which does bring us to the next question I wanted to ask.
Absolutely.
Which was, do we think Unoathed blades can change shape?
Yes. I mean, if the plates can make a peg for Adolin, I don't see why the blades can't also change shape.
I agree with you completely, Grace, but to play devil's advocate, I do think even regular plate, like, regular plate does like change shape depending on the bearer and things.
A little bit and slowly though.
Yeah, so it's usually not like, hey, we give you a leg.
I'm just saying there's a guy with a leg missing who gets a pair of regular plate, and after like 20 years, it's finally a peg.
I don't think it's that slow. It's definitely not that slow.
No. Let me walk this back. I'm wrong about that, because when Adolin lends his armor to Yanagon for like training purposes, it doesn't at first, but it immediately shrinks down.
Yeah.
So I think I'm wrong about the changes, but slowly.
Yeah, and I think there was like, for some reason I have in my mind like the plate creating like slots for gems and things that weren't necessarily there. So like there's some changing.
I mean, that has to have been the case, because original armor presumably didn't have slots for gems because it didn't need gems.
Yeah. I think what you're thinking of, Eric, is like it was explicitly called out that the blades changed themselves to accommodate gems.
The gem in the pommel.
We never got an explicit call out of plates changing to accommodate gems. But like it makes sense that it would.
Vaguely, there's a vague thing in my memory, but I have no recollection as to which book it is. So that it's entirely possible that I made it up. I will say it did occur to me, it could be useful for Radiant Plate to have gem slots so Radiants can just store Stormlight and breathe it in. So that could be...
Instead of having to carry pouches.
Yeah, like that's probably what they would do.
Pouches can be like stolen and stuff like that. Yeah.
So that could be part of like the OG design. But changing blade shape, I do think that will eventually happen, for sure. Did I say the opposite in the Adolin episode? I think I may have.
I think you may have, yeah.
I may have.
But I think it makes sense. I think the argument, well, if armor can do it, blades are like universally more flexible than armor in terms of their abilities. Yeah. And so if armor can do it, then surely swords can as well.
I wouldn't be surprised like if it takes more, I don't know, training for the Unoathed to be able to do it, as opposed to like Radiant.
Yeah, but Kaladin was able to do it. The moment he was able to summon Syl as a blade, he was able to summon her as a shield and as a dagger and as a hammer. Yeah. It happened within minutes.
Yeah. Which is why I think it should be more difficult for Unoathed, but not impossible.
I think it could be a function of Mishram being freed. So like as like we could go into back half that I agree it should work like that, Ian, but it's possible that the Deadeye's healing would make them changing shape easier, right? And make it as trivially easy as Radiant Spren.
I mean, in the same way that being alive makes things easier than if you were dead.
Okay, when you put it like that. Okay. Well, you make a good point there, for sure.
I really think it's just a function of, like, one of the Unoathed has to actually go to their blade and be like, hey, I think I want to summon you as something else. And the blade's like, oh yeah, I haven't been a sphere in, 1,000 years. I have, let's do it. Sure. It's just like, I think it's just like a function of, like, if the spren decides to, and they've been swords for so long that they haven't yet.
My investiture is stuck in a sword shape. I have to work out the spear muscles a little bit.
Well, it's like the sword shape is the default.
Yeah.
Is it still default?
I mean, it's been default since day one.
Yeah,
because they mimic.
Yeah, but I'm saying we got an honor spear now. So is it still?
Oh,
default?
that's interesting. But no one knows about that.
The existing Unoathed, yes, because they were copying the original honor blades.
You gotta copy the honor blades and have your default form be these enormous blades to fight exactly 3 thunderclaps. It makes sense.
Apparently, Nightblood talked to the honor blades and figured out how to give surges. So maybe the Unoathed friend just need to talk to Sill's new honor spear, and then they'll figure it out.
Look, I'm sure Maya and Sill will get along great when they can have a conversation.
I just want a shopping episode with Sill and Maya.
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Mm-hmm.
I would read that. That's an interlude I want.
The two of them in Shadesmart. The Shadesmart mall.
Yes, obviously. I do think, at least when Adolin summons Maya, it did seem instantaneous. No mention of 10 heartbeats as a blade.
Yeah, I think that has been the case since Lasting Integrity.
Has it?
No, sorry. Let me clarify. I don't think that's said in the books. My impression is that this has been the case since the trial.
Interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah. It's just we didn't get a chance to do it until later. Yeah.
And obviously, like in Shadesmart, we wouldn't see that because that's not applicable.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know what I want to talk about?
What do you want to talk
about? So, earlier in the episode, I mentioned how Unoathed spren are different from Radiant spren in that the Unoathed spren they live more in Shadesmar, and then obviously like they can get pulled into the physical. But the Radiant spren, just by virtue of the bond, get pulled and just like live in the physical realm.
Sure.
There is another piece to this which I found interesting, which was that when Adolin is kind of sitting in like Dalinar's War Council meeting in Urithiru in like day 2 or whatever, he's got Maya summoned as a blade and he's kind of holding her, and he seems like, we're in Navani's POV, I think, and Navani notes that Adolin seems to be like narrating the meeting to Maya. Just kind of conveying what's happening there, which I found maybe interesting is the wrong word, but notable at least, because when Maya is in Shadesmar, therefore she's not a blade, she is in Shadesmar, she can see what is happening in Shadesmar, she can fully move, she's not constrained to like an area around Adolin. Like she goes all the way out to Urithiru from Azimir, right? Yep. Where like a Radiant spren loses their mind when they go too far away from their Radiant for too long. That doesn't seem to be the case for the Unoathed.
Nope.
Well, that's, I think, a function of like she's going that distance in the cognitive realm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But there's the other. So like, she's in Shadesmar, she can see what's going on there, and like Adolin can warg into her and like see what she sees. But when she is in blade form, obviously she's a sword. She doesn't have eyes in the physical realm. She can like still hear Adolin apparently, but she's not able to perceive Wait, hold up. Why can Adolin talk to her and tell her what is happening, but she cannot hear for herself what is happening?
I think it is an internal conversation that he is speaking aloud for his own benefit. Because he can't communicate with her in his thoughts.
Yeah, he does all the time. That's where we get the "were you a slut?" the conversation. Well, like that's definitely a thing. They talk in their mind all the time.
But so I just wanted to, like, this is not necessarily a discussion point or a power point. I just wanted to flag that it's interesting how the unoathed spren, as represented by Maya, function and behave differently in different realms depending on like whether they are summoned as a blade or dismissed and just like living their best lives in Shadesmar.
Yeah, I don't really understand what's going on with that. Like, why would he be?
Oh, and there was also the scene where Maya was like crowd surfing with the army in blade form.
Yeah.
I
think the being able to go long distances in the cognitive realm, like, is just a function of like it being the cognitive realm. Like, I think if a radiant spren was in the cognitive realm, they could go farther away from their radiant with no issues.
But the problem is they can't go there, right? Because once they get pulled into the physical, they are.
But like if both the radiant and the spren are in the cognitive together, maybe like.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why the radiant spren couldn't go far away.
I think that makes sense. I think it's an interesting question and one maybe worth asking if we ever get the opportunity to ask questions again.
Hey. Whereas like in the physical, like the spren needs the radiant to stay in there, unless you're Notum, and then that's fine. But okay.
Well, Notum is like being bonded to everyone, and therefore he can go everywhere.
Well, we'll maybe talk about it later in this episode. Do you think you need to make an unoathed that the spren had to have been dead-eyed? Or could it be some other spren? Like one that was not killed in the recreants type thing?
See, the reason I put that question in the outline is because I wanted to ask that question because I don't have an answer.
Oh, well.
I would like the answer to be yes, a new radiant, like a new true spren of the 9 varieties could make an unknown.
Oh, interesting.
I guess a simpler version of that question is, could like Lucintia have chosen to make an unoathed instead of becoming a radiant spren?
I think the answer should be yes.
I think the answer should be no. I think they have to have been dead-eyed. But that does mean that, like, unoathed, like, if a Deadeye is required, then we are only getting these unoathed, and they cannot proceed in the future. So if mechanically Brandon wants, well, because the Deadeyes would be healed, and, like, you're not going to get new Deadeyes anymore, right?
Oh, you're saying there's a limited number, there's a cap to the number of unoathed. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Whereas, like, if you can... any number of reasons why spren can create new spren, right? Like you can always get more radiant spren, right?
So what go ahead.
I go back and forth on this, and I think where I've settled is a spren who was not Deadeyes could not have figured out how to do this on their own, because they needed that experience to sort of learn it was possible. But now that it's discovered, they could teach new spren how.
Ooh.
Yeah, but
I think where I've settled on.
That's basically like a new spren can learn what they did. There's 37 unoathed spren. Like, we're not stuck with 37 forever. Like, whether that's like probably like finding other dead-eyed spren, like that, like, hey, join our club. Or new radiant spren can like, hey, we like functionally what I think like the unoathed bond is analogous to like the altered Nahel bond the Skybreakers have, just like in a different direction. It's a modification of like it's not granting oaths, but it's still a bond.
I hear you. I don't like that analogy. So I agree that it's a bond in like a Cosmere mechanically, magically, spiritual level.
Yeah.
I don't like comparing it to the Nahel bond. I don't know how I would describe it better. I think an inherent property of both Nahel bonds and Luhel bonds is the exchange of something.
Okay.
Nahel trades in, I guess, cognitive stuff,
Sure.
and Luhel trades in physical stuff. I don't think there is. I guess maybe there is a little bit of an exchange because, like, no, maybe there is no exchange. What's the symbiosis here? Like, yes, the human gets to be able to summon the spren into the physical realm, but that's not a power, and the spren doesn't seem to get anything out of it other than to be able to be summoned.
There's no exchange or symbiosis because like they can do it with another spren.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's probably closer to like a Sion bond or an AVR bond.
I was going to say, I think isn't there a wob about like getting surges from Sions? I see it as like the modern Sion bonds that we see, where it's like the Sion can be passed to anyone and you can use it for communication. But there is potentially the potential of the deeper bonds there that does grant surges that we just haven't like seen or discovered yet. And it's like this is sort of like the spren figuring out the more shallow level version.
Yeah, like there have been comparisons between the Sion bond and the
spren
bond. Like I think Brandon may have explicitly said like it's a Nahel bond. It just functions a little differently, as opposed to like the radiant Nahel bond.
Yeah, like
but
so this
also,
could
like,
be a different one. Yeah,
like like this spren symbiosis of like the magic fish or like Rhyshadium, like those are also Nahel bonds.
Yeah,
but a much like lower power level.
Yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah. So it's like I still feel comfortable like calling the Unoathed bond a Nahel bond. It's just shallower, shall we say, than the radiant Nahel bond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that works for me.
That works for me.
So it's like it's so like going back to like my Skybreaker comparison is just like there's more flexibility with this bond than the Radiants necessarily think. It doesn't only work one way. Like you can modify it to not grant surges or to like modify it in some way that like the spren are protected if the Radiant breaks their oaths.
Much like how Hemalurgy is a much more complex art than just stab through the heart, stab someone else, get powers.
Yeah.
I do like, Ian, the idea that now that it has been figured out that Unoathed are things, then now people know it's possible, and so spren can mimic that, which seems very in line with how spren originally granted surge binding and things like that. That like they didn't know that
like,
they could mimic
figured it out.
Yeah,
by looking at the honor blades, like it wasn't like a thing they were made to do.
Yeah. And so they probably just never considered that they could do it this way, because why would they? You know, if you're mimicking the honor blades thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah, like the surges was the point.
Yeah,
that was the like they were trying to give people surges, not anything else.
Yeah, the blade and the plate were kind of like, oh, interesting. I guess the blade part, they're kind of trying to do that too, I guess. That's interesting. Okay, all right. You convinced me. So, Grace, in our Adolin episode,
Yes.
we wondered, it makes sense that Maya could do this, right? And be
Yes.
an unoathed spren.
Especially going back to the trial where, like, Adolin, like, he senses a need from Maya and is like, okay, you can have my
Strength.
investiture, like, she takes something from him.
Yeah.
There.
Okay.
So
Good
the question
vibes.
became, how are the other spren able to do this? Because they
Like
didn't go through
Zorm.
this process that Adolin went with Maya. And so we had some interesting thoughts, but maybe we should just leave
I
it
have
to you.
two alternate theories.
Great.
Yeah. Let's see
One-
what your
Yeah, I'm so curious.
unadulterated
Yeah.
thoughts are.
Yeah.
One is that kind of in line with what I said in the previous section. Maya figured it out because of Adolin, and once she did, like the two of them were sort of able to teach the others how to do it. And it's like that sort of bond with Adolin made it easier, or was like necessary for her to initially figure it out, but it wasn't necessary for what he did, like what the other spren are doing. Alternate theory: Adolin, through the trial, became connected to all Deadeyes, and it's like the strongest connection is with Maya, but it was the connection to all Deadeyes that he has that was able to pull them through into the physical realm. And it's like, and now that they're in the physical realm, they're able to forge connections with the other Unoathed that are like stronger than the initial connection with Adolin. But it was his connection to all Deadeyes that was created in the trial when they all like showed up to watch that allowed him to do this.
Say all of that again. Because I felt the torrent of words, and I could grab on an idea here and there, and the rest, as I was trying to examine something that I had grabbed on, the rest would like just swept past me.
Do you want both theories again, or just
No,
the
just the second one. Just the second one.
So during the trial,
Yes.
Adolin forged a connection with all Deadeyes because they were drawn to the trial. They waited outside the walls of lasting integrity to see what happened, and his testimony and Maya standing up and saying, "We chose." He has the strongest connection spiritually with Maya, but he does have in that moment forging a connection with all Deadeyes because of what happened to them, and he is the representative of the people who broke their oaths. And so in Wind and Truth, when Maya brings the Deadeyes to him to create the Unoathed, he has, over time, since, like, you know, Oathbringer and before, his relationship with Maya and how he treated her, was able to forge the connection that allowed her to become an Unoathed. And sort of through his experiences with her, plus the broader connections that were created in Lasting Integrity, was able to do the thing where he, like, clapped his hands and summoned all the blades and plate into the physical realm.
Okay.
And
so
I think that, like, now that they are there and they're able to talk with other people who have, like, picked them up, they'll be able to, like, create the bond that Adolin and Maya have.
Okay. So you're saying, so Adolin gets them halfway. So it's not that the other 9 Unoathed automatically and for free get all of the work that Adolin has done with Maya. Adolin gets them halfway there by summoning the shards. And then the others still have to do the rest of the bonding work.
Potentially, yes. I mean, I haven't put a ton of thought into this, but
Yeah,
I'll just say this is cool. This is very complimentary to what I said in the previous episode.
I'm trying to remember. Dear listeners, I'm going to let you peek behind the curtain of recording a Shardcast. You say a lot of things, and then as soon as the recording is done, you forget everything you've said. I know I said the term spiritual ripples.
Yeah, that's what I remember
trying
too.
to recontextualize. I know the broad strokes of what I was trying to say.
Yeah, because you had some dumb like time travel idea.
It wasn't. It was spiritual ripples through time.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, wow.
That's not time travel. So this may not be what I said last time.
Great.
But it's something like they are able to make the bonds with the other unoaths because they will have a connection in the future. That I feel like it's totally supported by wibbly wobbly timey-wimey shenanigans.
Yeah.
It's like they have a bond because they will have a bond.
Yeah.
You're good with the spear because you will be good with the spear. This all tracks.
This makes sense.
I really need to veto the whole with the spear because
it's not exactly what the WoB says.
One, it is not exactly what the WoB says. Two, I don't think that is like true. Like I just don't think Destiny works that way.
Now, I
hold on. I have more to elaborate on this. There.
Great, good.
So you asked me to like Eidolon gets them halfway there, and they still have to forge a bond.
Yeah,
I think that the bond was so difficult for Eidolon to forge because Maya could not talk, and he is bringing in blades that can talk, and so for them, it's sort of like it's like a quicker choice to be like, yes, I am choosing this person to form a bond with, and they could reject it. But in this scenario, because they all like Eidolon and Eidolon approved of these people, they're like, yeah, sure, kind of deal.
I mean, the Ash spren like almost says the word watchers, and that's the extent of the like saying that they can talk is, we've seen one word from the 9 of them, which is one word more than we ever saw from Maya. They start
themselves 15 minutes later, so like maybe they start talking more later.
Yeah, but that's later.
I do want to get to what Ian was saying with spiritual ripples because I do want to combat Evgeni here. But before we do that, so what I said in the last episode,
from our ad sponsor?
No, that. It was Eidolon had the connection to Maya, and Maya was forging a connection with the other Deadeye spren. But now, upon rereading, and with what you said, Grace, I think you are correct that it is the connection that Eidolon forged with the Deadeyes. And there's textual evidence to support this because...
Is there?
Yeah, no, there is. There is. Because they're talking about Eidolon's like, the honor spren aren't going to be helpful, and then the Deadeye are coming, and Eidolon says, "Who are they?" He didn't see how Dead-eyed spren, even this many of them, would help. They're those who've been forgotten. And Eidolon says they eventually fade back into Shadesmar, and then Maya says, "To wander forever, but I haven't forgotten them, and they, like me, haven't forgotten you." And so I do think there was this aspect where, with some spiritual ripples, that like the Deadeye were drawn to lasting integrity because they knew that was going to be a big moment and an important moment. And so that is spiritual ripple shenanigans, for sure. 100%. Right?
I don't like calling it that, but
that's what
yes.
They felt a thing was about to happen, just like many spren felt, oh yeah, this bad thing's going to happen with the Everstorm and things. So that's fine. But yeah, Eidolon made this connection with all the Deadeyes. And so yeah, I think Grace is right that Eidolon has that connection with the Deadeyes. And so that is why he personally is, all of the shard blades, there's a ring of shard blades and plate appearing. And then he's like, yeah, let's arm up.
The more I think about it, the more I think Eidolon during the trial, and I don't have the exact quote, but Eidolon during the trial basically goes like, I am standing trial for all of humanity and for all the Radiants who broke their oaths.
Yes.
And I think that is an important part of this process because, like, Brandon has sort of said, like, one of the things that would be needed for, like, sort of reform. And, like, obviously this isn't directly connected because the Unoathed and freeing Mishram and, like, there's a lot of other things at play. But, like, Brandon has said, like, the original Radiance would be, like, an important part of potentially
restoring the Deadeyes.
Restoring the Deadeyes. And I think Adolin specifically going, like, yes, I am a stand-in for all of the Radiants who broke their oaths is, like, a genuinely important spiritual thing in order to, like, facilitate what happens.
I don't like that you brought up that.
I like that.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, that's why I don't like it.
I think we're getting here, guys. I think this is good.
The thing I was gonna say is that I don't think like the Deadeyes remembering Adolin, I don't think there's like any connection stuff. I think that's just they remember you and so they're willing to give this a shot.
I will just say, in context, they've not forgotten you. And then the Ashpren talking to Adolin in particular, I don't know, that just feels... There's definitely an echo with how Maya was talking with Adolin. Like, come on.
Yeah, and there is like... There's the whole Notum thing where he can now transition to the physical realm because people
that's a whole other thing.
Well, it's a whole other thing, but it's the idea, like... Spren are affected by thoughts.
Yes.
And so Adolin remembering these Deadeyes and thinking of them as individuals and as people and stuff like that. Yeah, that thoughts and memory have power in Shadesmar, and they have power over Spren. So, like, yeah.
I guess I would say, in Cosmere mechanics terms, everyone's forging connections all the time, right?
That is true.
So,
yes.
like, you making a big choice does inherently forge a connection, even if it's like that. That's just how it works.
That is true.
I will say, Evgeni, I do disagree with your comment about good with the spear, because he will be good with the spear. Because this just,
well, you can be wrong about that.
I guess what I mean, I'm just reminded of, like, Syl coming through, that when Syl came through, she wasn't, connected with Kaladin right then. It took her a while to find Kaladin, but she's grabbing this spiritual connection that she will forge as a proto-radiant through time in the spiritual realm. That's what's happening.
I think Syl just got debated by Tien.
No. I think when these first Radiant Spren transitioned, they made a choice to seek out that person, but that bond hadn't really been created. So they're drawing this bond, the bond that they will have.
No.
No, okay.
No, I think they are, and Syl hasn't done this in 5,000 or 4,000 years or whatever.
Well,
I don't think, I think she sensed.
Because it's before them.
Recreance.
It was right before.
Yes, you're right. But
actually,
I think she is, she's in Shadesmar.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, there is Honor McHonorson that I can sense in the physical realm. I must go to him. And she shifts over.
Yeah.
And that's a very traumatic change. She loses a lot of her memories and
Sure.
personalities.
Sure.
And so I don't think she's drawing on some future spiritual connection to get to Kaladin. She is reading her Joan Stormlight radar and trying to get to the person that she was originally trying to get to because of how chock full of honor he was. and it's just
Mhm.
difficult for her to navigate that because she just lobotomized herself.
Hmm.
I don't think that's how it works.
Okay.
I don't think like she just like passively knew there was someone out there. Because like spren do have to like look for their somebody to bond. So
Yeah.
I do think like she was like pulling some shenanigans and like knowing she will find somebody and having no idea who that is.
I really, really hate relying on like knowing the future as a plot mechanic.
But it's like that's core to the Cosmere. Like the spiritual realm, like all times are one.
Yes.
Like they
but
have a
all
bond in the
times
future,
are
so they have a bond now.
Yeah, but like there are an infinite number of futures where she doesn't have a bond with Kaladin.
Well, you know, I do think it's possible that Syl in Shadesmar did specifically choose Kaladin. And that part, like, that she knew that she was seeking that specific person out for non-timey-wimey reasons.
No, because when she transitioned, like, she didn't know Kaladin yet, but the winds knew him.
Oh, crap. Okay, yeah. Okay, never mind. Yep, you got it. Yep. Good point.
The wind is an annoyingly convenient argument. The point that I want...
That's my favorite kind of argument.
Like, Kaladin and Syl aside, what I want is for us to not rely on this is happening because it will happen as, like, the default explanation we have for a lot of things. Because I think we have started doing that because Brandon led us down this path with the whole spear wob. And, like, I don't want the answer to a bunch of questions to be, well, they're happening because the plot requires them to happen. Like, I want us to find, I guess, Watsonian answers to why this is happening.
So I disagree that these are not Watsonian answers. I think they are both Watsonian. Like, they're weird Watsonian. What's the other one?
Doylist.
Thank you. They kind of hybridize between Watsonian because, like, it is a in-world explanation. It's just,
but it's the lazy in-world explanation.
Kind of.
Yes, but sometimes the Doylist answer is the answer.
That is true, right? And so
that, like, at the end of the day, like, these are books written by a mortal man with all of the flaws inherent within that. It is not a truly internally self-consistent reality as our reality is.
I would say tons of what spren feel that people must do are Brandon foreshadowing that, hey, a thing's gonna happen and hey, you should probably go do that, which the wind is doing the entire book. Like, hey, Kaladin, you should probably go to Shinovar. Something really is important is gonna happen in Shinovar. And like that happens all the time in these books.
And it especially happens in this one, right? And especially with the wind, right?
And I just don't agree. Yeah.
Or in the Stormfather's case, I have a feeling that you must not do this thing under any circumstances, and then it happens.
Well, but he lies about it.
That's true.
Like, his feeling is, I don't want you to do this thing.
I do agree. It is very naked, like, author is foreshadowing a thing. Like, I do agree with that. But, like, there's enough Cosmere mechanics that, like, that's fine to me.
Mm-hmm.
We're always talking about these fragments of the divine and things, and they're connected to all sorts of things in the future. That's fine.
And, like, I don't think we're overusing that explanation.
Yeah. I'm just saying this is perfectly logically consistent. You're totally entitled to not like that is a logically consistent in-world explanation.
It is, right? but like once you start going down this path, where does it end? Like, you can justify literally anything in these books as it's happening because it has to happen and it will happen.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Stormlight magic is loosey-goosey, right?
And that is inherently unsatisfying.
That's totally reasonable. I'm just saying. You can take it up with Brandon.
I will.
Cool. Thanks, Grace. So, yeah, did you have anything you wanted to talk about more with Spiritual Echoes, Ian, or are you satisfied?
I really wish I remember more of what I said about the spiritual ripples. I like this metaphor. I like
it's good.
This is because it's going back to like what happens in Dresden Files, and like I think that's a really cool thing in Dresden Files.
Like big moments rippling through the spiritual realm. Yeah, I'm with you here. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Like this wearing of the Unoathed like is Cosmere logically a momentous occasion.
Yeah,
that has effects.
And you can probably make a case for the
ripples.
Death Rattle.
Yeah. The Death Rattle. Death Rattle knew it. Yeah, it's true. That's good. Nice. I think we nailed it, guys.
So one thing that I find interesting about the Unoathed is the timing of when they were created, because Mishram is still trapped in her prison. None of the, dead eyes and none of the inherent brokenness of Roshar has been fixed yet. Mm-hmm. And yet this is still something where these dead eyes can be summoned into the physical realm as blades and plates in a new sort of oath that wasn't possible before, which is interesting because I think if I hadn't seen the timeline in advance and knew both about the Unoathed and about what Mishram was doing, I would probably assume that she needed to be free to create them.
Yeah, and just for context, the Unoathed happened a bit before the contest, and like the contest is happening, Dalnar's trying to ascend like during the contest, and then that's when Mishram's freed, and then Dalnar can pick up on her. So just so we're all clear on the timeline, because a lot of things happened.
You know what's weird to me?
What's weird?
So Adolin does the whole thing in the trial with Maya, and then he leaves Shadesmar. And there seems to be no like immediate effect from that. And now, granted, he has no reason to like experiment with his powers, but like he doesn't dismiss his plate. His plate doesn't become fully transparent in the helm. Maya presumably still takes, several heartbeats to be summoned. And then she walks away for a week and comes back. And immediately, the nature of their bond seems to change. In fact, that happens before she comes back, when he summons his plate off of Abidi.
Right. In the aluminum box as well.
Yes, in the throne room.
Though that is quite interesting as well, because Adolin thinks that that's because he last told his plate, go with my stand-in. And he didn't specify who that stand-in was. And so he thinks it's because the plate spren are still following his orders. So when he kind of countermanded those orders, then the plate came back to him.
Yeah, because there is, like, earlier on, like, he senses, like, resistance or regret, like, when he's, like, taking off his armor.
He does sense some of the emotions of the spren, yes.
So like clearly like something was starting even that early.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of like thematically the idea of both the plate and blade spren sort of not like walked away in a sense and then chose to come back to Adolin, and that's when the bonds changed. Mechanically, I don't know that like I don't really see how. Like, mechanically, I'm not sure how that would affect things. I like it on, like, the thematic level of, like, Adolin gave these spren a choice, and they chose him.
Yeah, and I guess my question is, why couldn't he do all of this a week ago? And maybe the answer is simply is he didn't try.
He didn't know he could.
Yeah.
The spren have to change at a key climactic moment when they make the big realization that they can, and that is sadly accurate, I think. I'm sorry.
Except he didn't know he could is unsatisfying to me because, like, no, I guess it works exactly like that, doesn't it? I was gonna
it
say,
definitely does.
I was gonna say, well, whether he knows he can instantly summon Maya or not doesn't matter mechanically, because like either the bond is strong enough for him to summon her instantly, or it's not strong enough and he needs the 7 or 10 heartbeats or whatever. But that is exactly how other blades work. If you believe you need the 10 heartbeats, you need the 10 hearts. Like,
Evgeni hating the Cosmere more and more.
I hate the Cosmere.
Yes. It is really interesting that all this happens before Mishram's freed, though. That's interesting. So why couldn't Adolin do it before? I do think it's probably that he didn't know he could. Because I guess the trial's the thing that changed it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no nothing.
And I guess believing in himself.
That too, obviously. Adolin didn't necessarily do a lot more with Maya, like to change things necessarily, because Maya wasn't there in the book. So, like, I think the core spiritual mechanical thing happened at the trial, and then they just didn't know that they could do that. And it's possible that, well, it's possible that if Adolin did summon Maya when she was in Shadesmar, it would take a bit of a delay just because she's far away in Shadesmar.
Yeah, but that's a separate thing.
That's a separate thing.
Yeah.
But I think if Maya was close by, I do think he could have summoned her instantly. But I don't. And
if he thought he could.
Yeah, I guess I didn't reread day 3 when he's like summoning things with Maya.
He never mentions it being instant, and so my assumption, like, because he doesn't note anything unusual, my assumption is that nothing is unusual, and she is coming to him in 7 heartbeats or whatever.
Well, when he summons Maya here, he doesn't like particularly note that it's instant. You kind of have to like
that's oh sure okay.
At the end, so that doesn't necessarily indicate what you're attempting.
Okay. The other answer, or the other possible answer, I think, is that the trial started some process. And it's just an ongoing process that's taken until Maya's return on day 10.
Forging the connection and things.
To fully heal her to a state where she can come to him instantly. Or near instantly.
For the dramatic moment that sends spiritual ripples through time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean maybe for Plate there's something like he didn't know how Plate worked before Shallan got hers, and like he didn't start the process of talking to his Plate and like until after that. I don't know.
That's fair. Because that was the reveal in Rhythm of War that, hey, the armor spread this too.
But yeah, like it definitely is notable that Mishram's release was not a necessary component of what they're doing.
Yeah.
It did enable all of the Deadeyes to continue healing.
Yeah.
I guess. Maya gets her eyes back. Other Deadeyes also get their eyes back. Yeah, they're scarred, but like presumably that's gonna either fully heal or mostly heal over time.
Mishram's captured didn't stop the Nihil bond from functioning.
That is true.
It had some modifications for the breaking of that bond.
Yep.
But it did not change the innate functionality of the bond. So it makes sense that this modification, as I am terming it, of the Nihil bond also works independently of her freedom or capture.
Yeah, that works for me. Adolin's the best boy. He did it. He figured out the thing. We got the Unoathed. Nice.
The magical power of friendship.
I mean, that is his magical power, so that makes sense.
Mhm.
We have possibilities for the Unoathed to expand. I'm sure, regardless of if Unoathed can exceed the 37 plate and blades that they have eventually, I do think we will see a lot more Unoathed after the time skip. Right? It'll probably be a whole organization in Azir, right?
I expect that at the very least, any Deadeye can choose to do this. And as we, I think, all agreed or mostly agreed earlier, any higher spren can choose to do this.
Yeah, I think that theory is solid. Which, having your plate being able to heal all the time and not... I mean, I guess being a radiant... Like, if you were a radiant spren, would you rather choose to be unoathed, or would you rather choose to make a radiant?
Yeah, it's like you really don't get anything from being a radiant spren now, do you?
Well, but you also don't
get
lose.
to go to the physical realm.
Yeah.
And like,
Yes.
I mean, like there is like the symbiosis of like they get like they become more human. That's
Yeah, but
horrible way of-
Notum went to the physical realm with his OS.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll just depend on what the individual spren wants.
It's less risky to be a radiant.
I think there are absolutely some spread that are like, I want to give people superpowers.
Well, that yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
You think Rua would be happy as an unoathed?
No.
But I did just think of something of a confounding element of it.
Oh, just one.
Yes. One new one. I'm not saying this is the only one. That because like it does make total sense that a new true spren could choose to become an unoathed. But what about new sets of armor? Because like they're not as sapient.
Yeah.
I don't know how radiants entice these subspren into becoming their armor, but some part of the oaths makes that happen.
Sure. So how would
that happen for an unoathed? I'm not entirely sure.
Are you wondering if a bunch of like, I don't know, windspren can come together into a suit of armor not associated or involved with a radiant at all?
Yeah, that's I'm like,
see this is making me think that they had to formerly be radiant spren
Deadeyes
and blades,
not necessarily Deadeyes, but like have done the radiant.
Yeah, having done the radiant stuff.
So you need to go through the pipeline.
You gotta go through the pipeline.
At least once.
Yeah. And now they don't necessarily need to be Deadeye, but I do think they had to have been Radiant Spren / Armor Spren before.
This is a side topic, but like, okay, Spren makes a Radiant, and then that Radiant gets armor with a whole bunch of sub-Spren. That Radiant dies, Spren bonds somebody new, then they make armor. Do we think that armor is made out of the same sub-Spren as Radiant A, or is that new Spren?
I think it's the same. Because Shallan, when talking to her armor, is specifically like, oh, like they're new, they've never done this before.
Interesting. I can see that the sub-Spren would be connected, capital C, to the corresponding Radiant Spren. So I think that's...
Yeah, it's kind of like a Squire-esque relationship, potentially.
Counterpoint, Grace. The fact that Shallan's armor spren are new to this could just mean that Pattern himself has never had armor spren attached to him. which I believe is the case. Shallan's armor has to be new because there's no old armor still walking like along with Pam.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think if Shallan dies and pattern bonds someone else, it'll be the same ones. Like having gained the experience of being armor to Shallan.
Oh, you were agreeing with this. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I was like, this isn't contradictory at all.
Yeah. Okay, no, okay, fair.
It's not like Adolin is using the armor of Maya's old.
Nope. It appears to be Dustbringer armor.
That's a good point.
Now,
yeah.
again, we don't know if Maya's previous owner had armor.
She's a badass. Like, I'm like,
yeah, but
yes,
her previous
like,
owner could have been a bitch.
But like, it feels like she's had more than one previous Radiant.
She'd probably be a person who had several Radiant ones.
She does seem like a slutty spren,
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I mean, do I think it would be difficult if it even is possible? Yes. Do I like the idea of like Rushu just like feeding Blippi and his friends enough that they decide to become armor for her? Also, yes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Get Bippy to be like Notum in the physical. Then, have Bippy be an Unoathed themselves.
No, in this scenario, Rushu is just like doing her sprint experience one day, and then she like thinks to herself, like, man, this would be so much easier if I had like a shard plate helm visor to stop explosions from getting in my face, and then Bippy like appears on her head.
Right.
As a help.
Or a glove that they can reach into
nice.
Into the oven. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a moment earlier when, and I think as the episode goes on, like longer and longer, we inevitably start mentioning Notum more and more.
Yeah, we do.
For one reason or another. But there was another Notum thing that I wanted to bring up earlier, which was, I was reminded of the earlier conversation about, well, what does the spren get about from this unoathed bond? It doesn't seem like symbiotic in nature, like other bonds that we have seen. And then I remember that Notum is like has another unoathed spren that he is like. How does that bond work?
Yeah, Notum is functioning in the human side of the relationship.
Yes. And so like, there's no symbiosis because Notum has nothing that he can provide that like the other spren doesn't already have.
It's a good point.
Notum is the closest we will get to probably to ever see Adolin Blade on screen.
Right? Yeah. Bladelin. For the uninitiated, Bladelin was a jokey theory that in the same way that Adolin would summon Maya in blade form, post-trial, Maya would be able to summon Adolin in blade form.
Classic. Do we want to just talk about Notum for a bit?
Yeah, let's talk about Notum for a bit, because he's weird.
There was a great YouTube comment, because last episode, we were like saying, I guess, given the explanation in Knights of Wind and Truth, for why Notum can just be in the physical realm unbonded.
Which is essentially people are thinking about spren more than they were before, and therefore, I guess a democratized Nahel bond is what's happening.
The entire land was sustaining them or something. That I think we said, this must have happened before, pre-Recreants. However, we do not see any spren like this in the Recreants visions, or any other vision for that matter, ever.
Which is not necessarily evidence, right?
Sure.
We get a very like select choice of visions.
I'm just saying, if the entire land was thinking of them and sustaining them, I feel like this is not going to be that hard of a thing to do. But a great YouTube comment was saying, if there were just spren around that like didn't die in the Recreants, then everyone would know why the Recreants happened.
I mean,
So it was mentioned that like the majority of most, or at least some varieties, like were bonded.
Sure.
Yeah, like effectively all of the ink spren
Sure. Right. Yeah. That is true.
were bonded.
maybe it was just like less socially acceptable pre-recreants to like hang out in the physical realm without a bond.
Just expected to
And,
be a
like,
radiant
And then
spren.
it was like once the recreants happened and they saw all the other spren die, it was more like, yeah, you know what? If you can hang out in the physical realm without bonding someone, go for it. Like, we understand you don't want to risk your life.
But then the humans didn't think of spren in that same way, and so then they couldn't. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying like pre-recreant versus like current times.
Sure.
Well, over time, they certainly lost the ability to, because Mordo minds forgot about them.
Yeah.
I still
Yeah,
don't
I'm
like this
not
mechanic.
No.
doubting that. I'm saying like if a honor spren had tried to do what Notum did just before the recreants, they would have had like a talk from the honor spren leadership being like, if you want to hang out in the physical realm, you need to bond someone, sort of deal. Versus now, where like Notum hanging out in the physical realm, there's like the spren are like understanding of the fact that he doesn't want to risk his life.
I mean, that's possible.
But like they couldn't stop it.
They couldn't stop it, no. And maybe that's a good enough reason, right? Like the combination of, well, the vast majority of every radiant type were bonded,
Yeah.
and it was frowned upon to just cross over. So like you were either living your life in Shadesmar, or you were crossing over and getting a bond. And if you choose the halfsies option, then other spren give you the stink eye or whatever.
It is also possible that the spren didn't know that they could do this.
Yeah, like that's possible. And it
That's also
could just be like, yeah, there were like a hand, like, because also like there were much fewer spren back then, just like all around.
Is that true?
Is that true?
Yes.
Why is that?
I don't know. Like somebody, like one of the spren says there were fewer spren in those days.
Really? I guess I just don't remember this specific.
I think it's pattern.
I guess I would just assume that numerically it would take such a long time for the spren to repopulate.
I'm sure there are fewer like generic spren.
I mean, I don't even know if that's true. I would expect that there would be a fewer radiant spren nowadays, because it would take so long to like repopulate their populations post 8 genocides or whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So that's why I was surprised that
I'm okay. Words of Radiance, chapter 75, True Glory. Sean pulled the blanket closer around her. An entire people all killed. Not just one people, pattern said, saw many. Spren with minds were less plentiful then, and the majorities of several spren peoples were all bonded.
Interesting.
There you go. I appreciate that, because I definitely did not remember that.
Yeah, there were very few survivors. The one you call Stormfather lived.
That's
Some
wild.
others, the rest, thousands of us were killed when the event happened. You call it the Recreants.
Look, I mean, I think it is established pattern that fertility goes down when more people are employed. So, you know, in a society where every spren is bonded to a human versus one where none are bonded to a human, there's, you know, a fertility difference.
Sure, that's...
I mean, look at it this way. If all of the spren are hanging out in the physical realm, they're not in going to those strange places in the cognitive realm.
The God Forge.
They can just
God Forge, yeah.
They can't go to the God Forge.
Yeah, they can't go to the God Forge. Let's do a Godforge episode. There's one fly.
I mean, all of this is true. Yes.
It is just wild that they were less plentiful. But there you go. I appreciate that. It's good.
I mean, like, we know that Windrunners plus Stonewards were like 2,000, I want to say, based on like the Feverstone keep thing, which is like a very small population for a type of spren, right?
I guess that's true.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. We all learned something today.
Yeah. I still do not like the Notum mechanics. I think it is weird, and the explanation is the most loosey-goosey. Even more loosey-goosey than any of the explanations we said about the other ones. Like, I do not like it.
You know, it doesn't bother me as much.
Okay.
I think there is a level of this that makes sense to me, where if you are a spren hanging in Shadesmar, and you want to get to the physical realm, your options are you either like grab at a human and pull yourself into the physical realm via that human, or and like you like grab firmly for that human, or you loosely grab at a little bit of every human and pull yourself that way, right? It's oddly, and for some reason, this is the second time I'm going to bring Hemalurgy into an episode that has nothing to do with it.
I just want to talk about Hemalurgy.
It is, look, Hemalurgy has a special place in my heart.
That is where it's supposed to go.
But it feels similar to like Era 1 Hemalurgic spikes versus Era 2 set like
Okay.
Let's drive the same spike through like 20 different people or 50 different people or whatever it is, right? So like that kind of, you either have one dramatic thing happen with one specific person, or you have a much lesser effect that is much more democratized, but you kind of reach the same place at the end. And so that feels a little bit similar to that.
Yeah, I guess.
I just really want to know what the Notum blade dynamic is like, just on a personal level.
That's true.
Well, Notum is clearly has to be the top of that relationship.
I mean, yeah, he's summoning the blade. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's how. Yeah.
So that their relationship is the relationship of a top spren and a bottom spren.
Okay. What I was gonna say is I
think works the same way as top quarks and bottom quarks.
I don't think you know enough about quarks to say that with any degree of certainty.
No, I think that's how elementary particles work, actually.
Yeah. Well, my undergrad particle physics class, I'm pretty sure no, but okay.
Well, they wouldn't teach you about bottom quarks in undergrad.
They didn't know that the quarks didn't know that they could do that. No, they did. But I will accept this explanation for Notum mechanics with this cultural aspect of spren pre-recreants, that there was a lot less of them, and they probably felt it was very important to bond humans, like especially during like desolations, right? Like there would be you definitely need the radiance, right, for that entire conflict, right? So
yeah.
I can see culturally that the spren feel like, yeah, it's necessary for if you're going to the physical realm that you're being a radiant spren.
Yeah, if you were just going to the physical realm and not bonding in a radiant, what are you doing?
Right. So
why are you just going to the physical realm?
And like there wouldn't be a spren that is concerned about bonding a human because they didn't know that they would die. So
yeah, there's no like risk involved other than the normal relationship risk.
I thought of another confounding thing.
Great, good.
Because Leshwi had an honors friend.
She did.
Yeah, we didn't get anything on that in this book. That's very interesting.
So we're like the true spren just hanging around with the ancient singers.
Yeah, but like,
Oh God.
but singers also have like more of a sight into Shadesmar.
I don't think to that extent.
I think it is reasonable to think like maybe the true spren were hanging out in the physical realm with the singers, but like maybe there is a downside to what Notum did that wasn't apparent yet, or like maybe like being an unoathed provides some similar benefit to like a radiant bond that prevents, negative effects from becoming apparent that, would have or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. This
he
is
was
sinking
fine
into
for,
my
like, a
brain
week.
now. Yeah, but we don't know the spiritual effects and things and how these things
It
go.
is possible that there are long-term effects that we didn't get a chance to see. Yes. I would be skeptical just because it would come out of nowhere, but it's possible.
I really want to know what the singer betrayal of the spren is all about, because I don't think we got any clue to that in any of the visions.
I mean, it like, I guess it has to be that, human singers and spren lived happily in harmony, and then there were essentially two simultaneous betrayals where the spren started preferring humans over singers, and singers started preferring odium over the old gods, the spren, honor and cultivation. So like, it's just kind of this messy double breakup.
I want to know more about it. That's what I want. But now, you're right, Ian. Maybe the honor spren were just chilling there. That's actually very plausible. It would explain that, admittedly. Maybe we should list who the Unoathed are before we...
I was hoping we'd do that at the very end of the episode, yeah.
Great. Well, how about we do that? Because I think we're wrapping. So, of course, we got our boy, Adolin Colon, obviously. We have Kolat, who is that Cobalt Guard guy. We got...
The guy who tried to be a Windrunner, and then the honor spren were like,
No.
We don't like light eyes.
No. We got
Welcome
both...
to the class struggle.
Yes. We got both Kushkums, Gezamal, and Zarb.
We
Give it up
love
for
Zarb
Zarb.
on this show.
We love Zarb. We should commission some Zarb fan art. we need a
we can do that. We can do a month of like
character portrait.
Lesser, like secondary, tertiary Wind and Truth characters.
that is kind of the purpose of those commissions.
It is.
Get
It
art
is.
for the Combine.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of the times it becomes art of well-known characters in like really cool scenes.
Because that's what people vote for. And it makes sense.
Well, it's because the options we give them.
Yeah. And then we have Mask, who's the Thalen guy who Aelin saved the son of in Battle of Thalen Field. Yep. We got May Aladar. Nice.
May Aladar.
We got Notum. And not mentioned in
135.
In 135, Sarkin is there and Zabra's there. Zabra is mentioned in 147 of definitely being an unoathed, but Sarkin, you need Sarkin to make the 10. And we have Yanagon, of course.
So that's Sarkin. I don't.
Yeah,
it's the Azish.
Yeah.
You know, that's the trans blacksmith woman. Zabra is the little girl who like wanted to join the soldiers, and Adolin was like, "Here, hold a shield line," and then just demolished her in there. But she's fun. I like Zabra. She's got spunk to her.
Yeah, that was fun.
One thing I wanted to actually touch on quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how close we are to wrapping up, but
Close.
Sort of for future of the Unoathed.
Yeah, sure.
Is do you guys? I don't know how much this was spelled out in that like epilogue chapter. Do you guys see them being more like a sort of Knights Radiant global organization, or sort of firmly under the Azish, like working like?
I imagine they're going to be more global.
Mm-hmm.
It feels weird to me that they would like be a department of the Azish government or whatever.
I think at this stage it's just Azir's the one place not under the Everstorm. So,
and also that's like, Adolin was there. That's where the first like drop of spren happened. So that's where the first set would be.
Mm-hmm.
I would be.
I do kind of like the idea of in the back half having sort of like, 3, maybe like 2 or 3 bastions of like good guys, and each one is sort of the center of a different organization, where like the Azir is like the center of the Unoathed. Yeah. Ritharu is like the center for the Knights Radiant, and maybe like Shattered Plains potentially in the future being the center for some sort of singer organization.
The Beast Riders.
I mean, I think that's exactly what's happening, actually. Like, that seems like exactly what this is setting up for. So, agreed?
I would be interested in finding out whether we might see like pockets of Unoathed in other places on Roshar, just kind of developing independently, or if we are going to be dependent, at least at first, on Adolin going to places and going, hey, have some spren.
I don't think it'll happen spontaneously elsewhere. I think any Unoathed that pop up will pop up in connection to Adolin's group. Whether or not they stay a united group, I think.
I see it potentially being similar to like what we have with Kaladin, where it's like theoretically Honor Spren could bond other people, but they all just love Kaladin so much they just go to him and bond the people he likes. Where it's like, yeah, maybe we could theoretically get Unoathed popping up elsewhere, but in reality, all the former Deadeyes just love Adolin and want to bond the people that he approves.
We love nepotism as a magic system, actually.
It's canonically, that's how it works. There's a watch about it.
Yeah. And it's not 100% right. They just like Malata develops on her own, and like the Stump develops on her own. But it helps to walk the path that is like well tread.
Yeah, it's just like Spren are more likely to look in the places other Spren have looked.
It is interesting to imagine Unoathed potentially like splintering into different groups, and I think that's why in this Adolin epilogue-y thing, they're just, let's be careful on how we expand the Unoathed, because ultimately they don't have the strict oath structure keeping that together. So
they don't have a morality clause written into their superpowers to control.
Yes.
So,
which like kind of feeds into Sunlit Man. We should talk about just a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Of that in Sunlit Man chapter 44, when like Sigzil is talking with the Scadrians and like, hey, let me on board. Rosharan, have you said the oaths? No, Zellian lied. I am a free man. I've got no part in the conflicts, blah, 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 blah. Can you fight? I have a blade. Basically, like, non-oathed, like, non-radiant shard bearers are known to exist, whether or not they are, like, formally unoathed in the sense that they are part of some organization that, like, Adolin, or, like, rogue shard bearers that, like, are functionally unoathed, like, just exist.
Oh man,
it's Sunlit Man is vague.
Yes.
Yeah.
If Notum can like use a blade and plate, do you think that like the shades and like the dust brigade can use it, and like that'd be scary, right? Like imagine like the shade army is already scary, but imagine if you like they're capable of using plate and blade like Notum can.
A shard shade army,
I think theoretically possible. I think it's the Night Brigade. It's not the Dust Brigade.
Whatever it ends up being called. I was like going to my old
the whole thing.
Yes.
I think that comes back down to, can you bond spren if you were not a Rasharan in some capacity.
I think yes.
Yes, because we've seen it happen.
Yes, you can. Hoyd
Yeah.
is the answer. Hoyd. Yes.
It's allowed to be weird, but I still, there's no like genetic prerequisite, right? Like that's not a thing. It's just what you do and what the spren chooses, right?
Yeah. In theory, you just have to get the spren to agree.
Yeah. In that case, like theoretically, I don't see a reason why a shade wouldn't be able to bond a spren. In like bond in an unoathed kind of level, not in a radiant kind of level. Practically, we're probably never going to have to worry about that.
But it sounds so cool, Argent.
The shades aren't as with it as Notum is. So like I wouldn't be surprised like if they're don't have the mental capacity.
Like level of volition and stuff like that. Sapience.
Yeah.
I think they are as physically capable of being within plate as Notum is.
Yes, but their minds no work good.
Do you have any other final thoughts, guys?
I did like 15 minutes ago, and then we started talking about shades with shards.
This episode went places, guys. Deep,
like Threnody, for example.
Way of Kings, shard plate mechanics, all the way to shades having shards.
Did you expect this much spren fertility discussion in your Unoathed episode?
This much,
It wasn't that much.
Yeah. I like mentioning the Godforge. That's what I like.
It's always a good day when we talk about the Godforge.
Always. If you're having a bad day, just think about the Godforge, and don't you feel better by just thinking
about the Godforge and Zarb?
And Zarb, yes. Put your comments below if you remember the Godforge.
It's my number one hope for the Cosmere RPG. Please write some sort of adventure that includes the Godforge.
Yeah, like a little Shadesmar supplement or
true.
Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. And maybe we don't have enough time to dig into this.
Not much.
But it is something that we mentioned on the last episode and didn't really come to a conclusion on. And it's the idea of if we go far enough into the future, a few years, a few decades or whatever, is there a meaningful difference between someone who is unoathed and just like a shard bearer who kept their plate and blade? Because the spren that are the dead eyes and the armor spren that constitute the plate and blade of the regular shard bearer will heal over time. And so will they heal to a point where they are indistinguishable from Maya and grant the same abilities as the unoathed currently have? Or is there something more to the unoathed that's going to distinguish them from a regular shard bearer?
I think there's something more. I don't know what that something more is. This also feeds back into my idea, my belief that eyes shouldn't be healing automatically. Because it leads to these sorts of questions that
I don't like it.
And
I
maybe
think
the answer is, regular spren heal up to a point, and you have and you need that little bit of extra from an unoathed, in quotation marks, Nahel bond to like get you all the way there. Maybe that's the answer.
If there is a difference, the standard plate and blade will eventually fade from use. Because I don't think that like the current model of bonding with the gemstone is going to be sustainable once Mishram is free, now that Mishram is freed.
I mean, that's certainly an interesting thing with those dead eyes are like regaining sapience, right?
And we know like new bonds like that can't be made.
I could see a world where maybe like the ones that were previously bonded normally don't sort of join the unoathed organization, but still develop those powers, and it'll become indistinguishable. I think I have a hard time seeing both the unoathed and like the standard like gemstone anyone can bond, needing to bond with the gemstone sort of deal, be like existing at the same time with Mishram freed. I don't know.
And the Zelian conversation kind of reminded me of this, because I was like, because obviously, Brandon wouldn't name drop the Unoathed in the Sunlit Man, and so like he dances around the name a little bit. But it made me wonder, well, are the Unoathed an organization, or is that just a way of describing what's happening here, in the same way that a shard bearer is a way of describing someone without prescribing an organization to them?
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being a situation like the Knights Radiant, where like the Knights Radiant are an organization. Bonding a spren doesn't necessarily make you part of that organization.
But yeah, no answers. It's just something I wanted to bring up before we close.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Let's get on over to who's that Cosmere character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace, Tien,
Tom,
Raise,
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for who's that Cosmere character? Caw.
Hi everyone, you know how the game is played. You send an email to wtcc at 17shard.com with 5 clues in the character those clues correspond to. I read each clue aloud, and after each one, our panelists have the chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. Let's begin. This first one was sent in by John, who said that he is an audiobook-only listener, so he had to use the Coppermind to make sure everything was spelled correctly.
Nice.
Respect.
Sorry for our pronunciation. I don't listen to audiobooks. I'm so sorry.
The first clue, clue 1, this character is a member of the nobility.
Is it Shalon Devar?
It is not Shalon Devar.
Teldon Hastings.
It is not Teldon Hastings.
Lord Trusting.
It is not Lord Trusting.
Yeah.
Clue 2. This character fights monsters like his father.
Inigo Montoya? Also, that ruins my Kaladin guess I was going to throw out there.
Yeah. Is this fights monsters in a similar way, in a similar fashion as his father also fought monsters, or fought monsters like his father because his father is a monster?
I think I'm just going to go with Ellen Venture,
It is not Ellen Venture.
But I do think it's more like fought monsters like my father did. I think that is more likely.
Yeah. I think this is a valid clarification question because the wording is ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
It's he says he fights monsters like his father did.
Okay.
Like his father did. Okay.
Like his father does.
Oh, okay.
It's not that he is fighting his father who is a monster.
Oh,
okay. I'm not gonna give you any more from Tenseis than that.
Can I humbly ask the judge that with that clarification, can I get another guess? Because I solely guessed Ellen off of that.
Because his father is a monster?
Yeah, I solely did that.
Don't let him.
I think that's a reasonable request.
Please, Grace. This is a totally valid thing for me to guess.
I'll let you do it, but you have to guess now and not wait for a long time until after both Argent and Ian have guessed.
Okay, Justice Call.
What, sorry?
Justice
You went
Call.
from a bad guess to a worse guess.
Yes, I did.
It is not that character.
Okay.
I'm going to guess Eric.
It's not Eric.
Oh, that's actually pretty good. Oh, that's actually a really good guess. Oh, man. because the father was the Lord General and they were fighting the monsters. That's really good.
Yeah, but was he?
No,
I guess
he's really good at fight. Yeah, no, he surely went on
monsters.
He surely went on those
But,
hunts like that.
Sandlings.
Yeah, I think he went with hunts with his dad a lot of the time.
I'm gonna go with the homeboy of the episode and guess Adolin.
And it's not Adolin.
Okay. The temptation to just immediately say one of the Lord Ruler's children, even though that makes no sense. It's very
This
high.
character saw his wife and children die.
These are awfully specific clues.
Yes.
Dilaf?
It is not Dilaf.
I don't remember if he had children.
Oh. Well, I appreciate the specificity, but now the problem is I don't know who we're talking about.
Also, not necessarily a male character.
No. I'm just gonna go with Elgar. Wait,
It is not Elokar.
that doesn't make sense. There's like
No
2
children.
3 reasons why that
Well,
doesn't work.
I mean,
I think Elgar died before Aesidon got consumed, right? Pretty sure.
And also, notably, his child not dead.
Very notably, in fact. Was it wife and children died?
It's written as children.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
haven't fact-checked this to determine that it's multiple, but it
No,
is
no,
written and
I'm
sent
sure
in
that
as
means
children.
generic, but I just wanted to make sure it didn't just say singular child. You know?
This also puts this character in a weird place where, like, they are old enough to have children, but we also, like, know something about their father.
That's really rare in the Cosmere, guys.
Yeah.
That's real
Yeah.
rare.
It is.
This should exclusively narrow this
And
down.
also,
here.
like, I feel like not a lot of children die in the Cosmere.
Wife and children. A lot of wife deaths. But
First one was like, they are noble, right?
Yeah.
like Basher doesn't work. They didn't have kids. Notably, because they're returned. They didn't know how to do it.
Also, monsters.
Yeah. I just really think wife and kids should be.
I'm just gonna guess Edward Ladrian.
And it's not
Mr.
Edward
Seeds.
Ladrian. It is not
I
Mr.
know. I just I need another clue.
We need more.
Gotta get it.
We'll see if this helps. Clue 4. This character whipped an animal until it turned savage and killed him.
Oh, this is the guy in Hearthstone who is the son of Roshone. Wait, but he's not married. That doesn't. No. He was. No. Wait, but Laurel didn't die. No, that doesn't
Also,
work.
it's Roshone who married Laurel.
But his son was going to marry her first, I think, until he died, and then Roshone married Laurel.
I mean, sure, but
anyway, Laurel didn't die, so that's
none of that is valid.
Roshone lore. Let's go.
God, this is hard.
I will say, because I think I like these clues, but I feel like you might not get it without the clarification.
Okay.
All of these are written from how the character views what happened.
Yeah, I thought some shenanigans might be happening because, like, monster is not a label that gets applied a lot in the Cosmere.
This character in question describes things the way that they are written in the clues.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
no, I that makes sense.
Seeing their wife and kids die.
Wild guess. I forgot his name. Redden.
It is not Redo.
I don't think he was
Wait.
married.
I could not remember that. But I thought, hey, maybe, his motivation is death and his father, fought and like maybe they had maybe their final conversation had them describe the invading armies of Teravangian as I guess Servengin didn't bring armies. The other Vaden as monsters.
Tell me clue 4 again.
This character whipped an animal until it turned savage and killed him.
That's a human. That's not an animal.
Yeah,
that's a human. Which makes me think Final Empire.
A member of the nobility?
Yeah, that's some House Lord. Fought monsters? The House Lords don't think of like others.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been like the son of a House Lord, but I cannot think of who that could be. I think I gotta pass. So that's what I'm doing. I need clue 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass too. I can't think of anything.
Clue 5. This character dies with a smile.
Is it just Kelsier?
Is that your guess?
Yeah.
No wife and children, don't guess Kelsier.
He's married to Mare.
No children, don't guess Kelsier.
Vin is his daughter. Thank you very much.
But he didn't
Who
see Vin
famously died. Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, fine, guess Kelsier.
die. No. Okay. Who else smiles in the Cosmere?
Who else smiles?
No one.
I feel like
Because
this
you-
character dying with a smile is a very notable moment once you hear it. Like,
Well, yeah, I'm sure like all of these are gonna make so much more sense once we hear it.
This is really hard, but I appreciate the very specific clues.
Yeah, it is rare and difficult to be able to like provide clues so specific and still like difficult to guess, right?
The comments are screaming at us.
Well,
Yeah, and it's also like sometimes there are clues that are not good. These are all good clues.
These are good clues, yeah.
yeah.
Character who we know about their father, know they had a wife and kid. We saw their
Died.
death.
And the character themselves died
Yeah.
with a smile. And they're noble. The monster thing might be less useful than the others. Like I thought maybe Dalinar, but the children thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't think this works at all, but I'm utterly hopeless. So I'm going to go with Jezrien.
it's not Jezrien.
He probably saw his wife die, and he must have seen his daughter
He
die
must
on
have,
multiple
and he
occasions.
You know? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I think
And he
Jezrien
died.
is
He's,
a less bad guess than others that we have guessed so
yeah.
far.
It's better than Jace the Call.
Look, I just wanted to get the random Ellen's club in there, you know? Just so I had to get Teldon.
Can you give me the exact phrasing of the noble clue, which I think was clue 1 or 2?
This character is a member of the nobility.
Okay, well, not a lot of wiggle room in that one, is there? And also the whipping is such a
It's so specific.
Yeah,
I
like
think
it feels
that
like
is-
I should know who this is.
I think that is maybe a metaphor, but a metaphor used in text
Yeah, for sure,
from
for sure.
from the notes and like how they
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Like,
Okay, that makes it trickier.
Oh, yeah.
So like maybe a metaphor for exploitation. I don't know. We're gonna go with good old Rashek.
it's not Rashek.
Like the only thing that's popping in my head is Paxton, Kenton's dad. It's not him, but that's my guess.
It's not Baxter.
Also,
because-
Kenton's famously not dead.
Yeah.
I like saw die doesn't necessarily mean the kid actually died. We've known these are like not necessarily explicitly
I've died.
verbatim true.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
So do you guys want to hear it?
I would love to hear.
Yes.
Not really.
It is-
Can we just?
Tanalan the Younger.
Oh, Tanalan.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Oh,
That's pretty good. That's pretty
I think
good.
The
That's a
animal
good
thing is
one.
like something Dalinar says about himself. Actually, like
Yeah,
like when he does the rift. Like
yeah, because it's the animal the wild animal the animal chapter.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's
That's a good one.
That's pretty good though.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, I can't even be upset about it because
That's
it's just
specific is good. Yeah.
fair play. That's a
Yeah.
defeat.
You got
Yeah.
us. That's good. No trickery.
Who sent this
Just-
one?
it was sent in by John.
John.
Well, good job, John.
It's probably John Stormlight.
Yeah, it's probably John Stormlight.
Kaladin has our email address.
Kaladin in the spiritual realm. He has
Yeah,
access to everything. And he has access to all the heralds, so he could just get free reign to the spiritual realm. He'll know all the chapter titles in the spiritual realm. Cool. Now we're going to do a priority queue, which you can send in through our Patreon. Patreon.com/17shard. We also commission cool art. But if you are a herald on Patreon, you can submit clues to the priority queue. And this
We're
one,
doing an Adolin piece this month.
that is true. This one's sent in by Oliver Newcomb, longtime listener and commenter,
Long time. Friend of the channel.
and herald. Clue 1. This character uses servants. It's just funny because
Light
yeah,
Song.
it's not Light
Bold.
Song. Good guess.
It is funny that you mentioned that because I was going to and will guess Siri.
not Siri.
I am going to guess Tavidian Techiel.
Okay.
Wow.
No, it is not Tavidian, but
We
I
love guessing Tavidian on the
I
show.
love that. Clue 2. This character is not from Roshar.
Okay.
It's not Tanalan the Younger. That would have been funny, though.
I guess Strath Venture.
It's not Straff.
Uses servants. I don't want to guess. No, okay. So let me metagame this a little bit.
Okay.
So Oliver is a long term channel supporter.
Yes. Writes very detailed comments.
He wouldn't send this character is not from Roshar as a clue if this is just like, you know, a character from Threnody, or like in other words, this wouldn't be a trivially satisfied clue, is what I'm saying here. So I think there are shenanigans afoot.
See, my thing is like I am exclusively guessing people who I think like use servants in a non-traditional like servant way,
That is
which is
also a
mostly
good-
just exploitation from the Final Empire.
Yeah. No, obviously, yeah. How else would you use servants if not exploitatively?
Okay. Great.
So I think not from Roshar means that this is a character on Roshar at some point.
Okay.
Is my metagame thinking?
My guess is King Iadon.
Ooh, it's not King Iadon, and I was desperately
He
trying to
does-
make him work for the last other character we were doing.
He
I'm
does use those servants.
see him die. I don't think he's smiling for the last.
Not from Roshar, uses servants. We are gonna go with Leshwi.
It is not less.
She is from Roshar.
Shenanigans
explicitly from
are
Roshar.
afoot, and then just immediately, just like
There
Not-
was. I was like, oh, that's fused
no.
braze, and like my brain just stopped. Like my brain either started one step ahead of the right answer or walked all the way up to one step before the right answer. Like,
Sure. Well, clue 3 is this character is forgetful.
I swear we've had forgetful before. And
Yes.
It's always like a clue that throws us off.
I'm gonna guess the same thing that was the answer last time, which was Nightblood.
It is not Nightblood. I do remember that now. I was like, no, we did have a forgetful one, and it was Nightblood.
I'm sure he's chomped on a servant or two here and there.
I mean, he does need servants to get around. That's true, but so far I could say that he satisfies these clues, but
Blushweaver.
it's not Blushweaver.
The other guesses to the forgetful clue that we used last.
Is it?
Let's churn through all of the returned.
Court of Gods, we got a lot of people to go through. Not from Roshar and use servants.
Let's rehash the what does it mean to be forgetful argument once again.
I will go with using Argent's logic, Vasher.
It's not Vasher. I like that. Clue 4. This character practices an invested art.
Uses servants not from Roshar. Forgetful. Practices an invested art.
Yes.
Obviously, that's Hoyd.
It is not Hoyd.
You're wrong.
Sazad.
It's not Sazed.
Like, surely there's some Scadrian who, like, spikes the servants to make more spikes.
I mean, you'd say that, but like, even in Era 1, Hemalurgy was not that far spread.
Yeah. I feel like I just had something, and then it like slipped through my fingers. Hold on.
Disaster.
It's forgetful, uses servants not from Roshar, and what was the last
invested
one?
art.
Practices.
Invested art.
Yeah.
Practices, I believe was the word used.
Practices.
I will go with...
I may need to give you guys a bonus clue, but I've created one.
Oh, you have little faith.
I will go with the Silence Divine's grandmother.
You mean Silence Montaigne's grandmother?
Or Silence Montaigne's, yeah. I don't know why.
It's like, that's a book.
I thought it would be cool and add the last name, and then just completely said the wrong thing.
I mean, it does rhyme, so, you know.
I like to think that you also threw Solemnity Divine in there somehow.
Yeah. No, it's
Silence.
not. No. Clue 5. This character has spoken with a world hopper.
I mean, this doesn't dissuade me from my Hoyd guess.
Well, I mean.
Okay. What are the 5 clues again?
All right. This character uses servants. This character is not from Roshar. This character is forgetful. This character practices an invested art. And this character has spoken with a world hopper.
This is the Dawn Shard of Change.
Is that your guess?
That is my guess.
It is not the Dawn Shard change.
Damn it. Think about it.
I don't think a Dawn Shard...
guessed Kelsier yet?
No one's guessed Kelsier.
Is Kelsier... Like, I feel like I'm trying to decide if I think Kelsier... I feel like Kelsier kind of fits these, but, like... Is it well enough that I want to guess it?
I don't know. Is that your guess?
Forgetful, uses servants, practices an invested art, not from Roshar, and...
Spoke with a world hopper.
Spoken word.
I wonder if shards fit the forgetful thing.
I was thinking about it, like, are there any, like, final moments of AT or Laras where they, like, seem to have forgotten things, but I don't think so.
Facts.
I feel like I have a lot of things that, like, kind of fit, but I don't know if they fit well enough that I want to guess them, is the thing. Oh, I will go with... Maybe not. No, I thought I was being clever, and then I thought about it more, and I'm not. I'll just guess Kelsier.
It's not Kelsier.
Forgetful, invested art, world hopper.
Yeah. This character
uses servants.
Uses servants. Not from Roshar. Is forgetful. This character practices an invested art. This character has spoken with a world hopper.
Oh, it's good.
No.
Yumi.
It is Yumi!
I
was
staring at
it's
Yumi and Night Painter over there.
I'm glad. I was literally about to say, it's Calic, isn't it? But no.
I wanted to like before we go to bonus clue, I wanted to guess what was her name? Like Nonarova's daughter, like the girl that Vasher
Sure.
I
has
think about.
forget.
Sure.
I think she fits all of them.
My bonus clue was going to be this character has practiced their invested art a lot. And I can only imagine that practice is very deliberate here. Which and very much is forgetful.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the secret projects are still too new. They're not like
It's true.
in my mental Rolodex.
It's just like you got to go through like you go from all right, Elantris, Mistborn, Way of Kingswords of Radiance. Yeah.
Every time I have to like intentionally cycle through Tress, Yumi, and Sunlit.
It's rough. It's rough.
I did have the thought of like, is there? But then I was like, no, like Yumi and Nakara both remember like everything that happens in the story. They don't forget things. But like, no, there's the thousands of years from Yumi that she just forgets every day.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, she only forgets a single day.
But she does forget.
She's forgot a single day a lot.
A lot.
Look, it's just one of these days.
One of these days. Well, thank you all for watching. You can find us on 70shard.com for all your news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could want. We have a very busy Discord server. We post things on Blue Sky. You can like and subscribe on YouTube. You can give a super thanks if you want, I guess. And you can support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We do some cool stuff.
Just one buckaroo, bucko.
One buckaroo. And if you want more Notum mechanics, we have an entire behind the scenes of Notum mechanics that you would not expect.
It's like 30 minutes.
It is literally 30 minutes pre-Wind and Truth. Very important Notum mechanics. You can go check that out.
That's true. Go check them out.
Yeah. And we'll see you
I
all.
don't remember what this is referencing.
This is
I'll tell
referencing.
you after.
Probably don't want to remember.
It's the video is called Notum's Tits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just, give you a preview, for the people. If that's what you want, you can go look at our Patreon. Anyway, we'll see you all next time.
Fortunately, it's too late for people to click off the video because the video's over.
That's right.
Bye.
Ta.